Well, hello, my fabulous friends. I haven't done this in a while and I forgot to take off my bracelets because they make too much clanging noise. I apologize. Today, we are going to talk about timelines. There seems to be a lot of talk, especially since Charlie Kirk was brutally murdered, about alternative timelines. Now, everybody's a little confused about timelines. What timelines are not is time jumping. Timelines are nothing more than choosing a path. Okay, so you are here, you're born, and you come into this world, and in front of you, let's say after you are done all your Mercury, your moon and your Mercury, so you've learned how to walk and talk and stop pooping your pants, and you got your math and everything, you know how to read and write and whatnot. All of a sudden, the world opens up to you on a bunch of choices that you get to make. Do you go to school? Who else needs to go to school to remember how to spell school? Do you get married? Do you join the army? Do you start your own business? Or do you do nothing? Or do you become a movie star? Like, you just have all these amazing choices to make. And then each one of these creates its own choices and consequences, right? You know, maybe you branch out, you want to become a movie star and you become a drug addict instead. Or maybe you do become a superstar. Maybe you start your own business and it flops, and you try another one, and boom, you hit one and you become a multi-millionaire. Maybe you join the army and you get killed. Right? These are all choices, but these people are calling choices timelines. See, the clock agrees with me. So what happens is, here you are, graduated grade 12, you're ready to go, and now your world is opening up. And these are all timelines, and all these timelines have branches, and all these timelines have branches, and all these timelines have branches, and branches, and branches, and branches, and branches. And then all of these have branches, and branches, and branches. And then you meet somebody over here, and they've got their own timelines. They've got their choices, and they branch out. And then some of them branch out, and every opportunity has other opportunities and crossroads. And some people call them timelines. And then what happens is, somewhere in the middle, your timelines meet up, and you either become friends, colleagues, lovers, whatever. But what's happened is, you both have a timeline that met somewhere in the middle. All right, let's say that you did join the army, and so you met somebody else in the army. Let's say you did become a movie star, and you met somebody else who was in the army, right? Chances are you wouldn't have met anybody in the army. Chances are, if you went to school, you wouldn't have met anybody in the army. Chances are, if you chose to become a movie star, you probably wouldn't have met anybody in the army. Right? I mean, that is so few and far between. How many times you say, oh, I walked in the coffee shop and there she was, and I already happened to be a big movie star, and yada, yada, yada. Very, very, very rarely, and you almost don't even want to believe it, right? There's choices that you make. So here's another way to do it. Okay, here's timeline. Since we're talking timelines, here's all your choices that you can take for your timeline, right? And it's infinite, dot, dot, dot. And here, so here's you, and here's someone else. Okay, so you chose, let's say this one is going to school, getting a degree. Let's say this one's army, school, movie star, rock star, business owner, what else? I don't know. Just married with children, factory worker, online marketing, nomad, etc. Drug dealer, that's an option, etc., etc. Okay, so you don't think you think of all of these as timelines, right? Let's not worry about the branches. So if you, and these are the same, if you wanted to become a rock star, what are your chances of meeting an online marketer? What are your chances of meeting a factory worker? What are your chances of meeting somebody who just wants to be married and settle down? What are your chances of meeting another rock star or a movie star? What are your chances of meeting somebody who wants to stay in school and get a degree? It very, very seldom, right? Because this drug dealer, well, you might, right? Rock stars use drugs. Not all of them do. Some of them do. But look at this drug dealer, how many lifelines he has to move up to get to this rock star, to be on the same level as this rock star. So he has to be in the game a really long time. He has to be he has to know so many, like, look at all the branches that he needs for these two lifelines to collide. Now, what about a rock star and somebody in a business? What if the business is something the rock star is interested in, making guitars? Well, that's actually a pretty good chance they are going to meet. What if somebody is in school, wants to get a degree? What are their chances of meeting somebody who just wants to work in a factory? Well, look at the jump in timelines that you have to do. Is it possible? 100%. 100%. What if this person goes to school to become a business owner and owns a factory? Sure. But look at all the different timelines that you have to jump through, all the different choices that you have to jump through. Do you think this online marketer is going to meet somebody in the army? Probably not. Do you think this nomad is going to meet somebody who just wants to get married? Probably not. I'm not saying anything is impossible. I'm just saying, look at the timelines that you have to jump. And they're called timelines because it takes time. It takes time to do that crisscross of all your different choices. So it's not impossible, but it takes time. You have to jump into this timeline, you have to jump into this timeline, this one, etc., etc., until you're on the same level and you happen to cross paths and meet. All right? So this also explains, I'm going to use an example, Charlie Kirk. All right, so there he is, he's born. What if he chose to go into the army? Would that get him to his business? Would he still be alive? Was his fate that he wouldn't have made it now anyways? What if he chose just to get married, work at a shoe store? have kids, be happy. How far would that be from the business? What if he chose to be a rock star? Well, now he's got a platform that wouldn't be that far off, having a platform to say what he wanted to say, to be a speaker. So that would probably, or movie star, right? He'd have a platform to become a speaker. He's that much closer to it. What if his business was pool cleaning? Would anyone listen to him to be a speaker? What if he wanted to come and chose to be a pastor? Well, he's definitely closer to being a speaker. He would have probably maybe had a TV show that would probably go in with being a movie star or a TV star. So you can see, like, by doing different timelines, we might not even have heard of Charlie Kirk, right? But he was on the timeline that matched up with he chose to be a speaker. So that was his timeline that he chose to be at. Now, those of us who didn't hear from about Charlie Kirk until he actually passed away, we were on a completely different timeline. Now, I also want to point out at this time, there's no such thing as a good or a bad timeline. We're all here to experience something. You might be asking now, how do you change your timeline? Is it too late? Well, the thing is, and I've said, that's why it's called a timeline. You can change anything you want with the right amount of time, right? So let's say you did choose to become a drug dealer. And that timeline just sucks large. A lot of the choices you make, you're doing you've got lots of legal stuff going on. But now you want to become an outstanding citizen business owner. You learned a lot, actually, being a drug dealer, about profit and loss and whatnot. And you figure you're going to be a business owner. But it's not just any business. You want to become a business with financial planning and selling insurance. I have a headache today in my spelling. As I've explained before, I have mild dyslexia and I really reverse a lot of things. But you want to become a financial planner. Guess what? You can't. You've got a record. So this timeline is not available to you. Or if you wanted to open up a daycare, this timeline is no longer available to you. It's not available. Sorry. There's some things that we do in our life that become not available to us any longer. And those timelines, it's like turning off a light. No matter what you say or do, poof, it's gone. Now, what if you wanted to become a lawyer? You've seen how lawyers work and you think you can do it better. Can you become a lawyer? Absolutely. All it's going to take is time. And all time is a timeline. You now have to become a student. You have to jump onto that timeline of being a student. You might have to jump on the timeline at the same time of being working part-time to pay for it. Although I've understand in Canada, when you're in jail, you have free schooling. So perhaps you want to become a lawyer while you're in jail. But you have to jump on different timelines. You have to then, now this timeline becomes unavailable to you. So every choice you make, you have to look at what timeline do I have to jump on to get there. And that's like anybody. You get out of high school, there you are. And so you have to go to college or university, right? So you're on that timeline. So for a while, you're on the timeline of student. And then you graduate. And now you're on you're on the timeline of a junior lawyer. And then you work your way up, and then until you become a lawyer, perhaps then you become a business owner, because now you own your own firm. But you have to jump on all these timelines. You cannot go from college to here. I suppose you could if your father owned a law firm and bequeathed it to you. Chances are that's not going to happen, because it would probably collapse without you doing all these timelines in between. All right, and that's how you move through timelines. So once you become a junior lawyer, the only reason you would go back to college is to learn something new and disrupt this whole timeline again. So let's say you become a lawyer, you're just like, oh God, this is terrible. I don't want to do this. I want to become a pharmacist. So now this timeline is still available to you. It's not that it's no longer available to you. You jump back on to the college timeline and start the process all over again. And then while you're over there, other people are over here doing their timeline, and you're going to meet people at college. You think when you're in college and you're 19 years old and you're at the frat party, you're going to meet anybody here? Oh, maybe if they're a pervert, right? You know what I mean, though, right? No, you're going to meet people who are on the same timeline as you. You're going to meet people on the same timeline as you. Like personally, person to person. Now, sometimes, of course, like I said, there's nothing here that says you can't jump timelines. Like, let's say you're a really pretty young girl, doesn't say you can't meet the seasoned firm owning lawyer, dashing, established man. Of course not. But then you're probably going to skip all of this in between when you do skip that timeline, because now you don't have to go to school. You've got your MRS. I get. But I'm just trying to explain to you how the timelines work. Now, if you become a pharmacist and you do all this, and one day you own your own drugstore, can you ever go back to being a lawyer? Well, of course you can, but you maybe have to take the bar exam again, right? Some of these timelines don't go anywhere unless they are just simply not available to you, right? So you think about it, when you learn something. I'm going to give you a really crude example. When you are a baby and mommy and daddy potty train you, and you learn to go into the toilet, right? So you are now on the timeline where you go potty in the toilet. You've gone from the diapers timeline to toilet timeline. All right. Do you think that you forget how to poop and pee in your pants? No, you just choose not to. You choose to stay on the timeline that is the toilet. But if you wanted to, you could. I don't know why you would, but it's not something that you've forgotten. It's not something that is now no longer available to you. It's available to you, just choose it's not to. But what if one day you have Alzheimer's and you revert back to this timeline? So some timelines are no longer available to you depending on the choices that you make, right? Like, here's a choice. Here's a timeline. Let's say you're a female and you get a hysterectomy. Well, what timeline then does that erase? Birthing children, birthing babies. that timeline is no longer available to you on the other side of this hysterectomy. Perhaps this timeline was up here on this side, but that doesn't mean you can go back to it. You've made a timeline choice that can erase previous timelines. All right, so once you get married, you can never have your first marriage ever again. You can get married a second time, third time, fourth, but you can never have that first marriage ever again. The marriage timeline is open to you if you get divorced or widowed, but that first marriage timeline is now gone. So some timelines you can revert to. Some timelines, so you can revert. These are your choices. After you've chosen a timeline, you can revert, you can stay. You can stay on your timeline. If your timeline is to be a factory worker, again, no judgment here. It's just your own timeline. You can stay on that the rest of your life. It's your life, right? So you can revert, or you like a revert. If you're a factory worker, you're like, yeah, this sucks. I'm going back to school. So you're reverting back to being a student. So you can revert, you can stay, or it becomes not available. Those are the only three options for your timeline. All right. Actually, there's a fourth, and that's to move timelines. And how you move timelines is you just move timelines. You move from student to graduate to career. You just continue to move to married. Perhaps you want to be married after you have a career. Now you're a married person. Perhaps maybe that's not maybe you're like, I'm never get married. So perhaps it's just to stay single all your life. That's fine too. It's your timeline. But just be careful when you pick a timeline, like I showed you the drug dealer, that wipes out a lot of different timelines. It takes away your choices. It takes away your timeline. And you can hop back and forth, revert, stay, but remember, some of them become not available to you. So then you have to move timelines. So let's say you are a factory worker and you want to become, let's say you've done it for 40 years. You're now 65 and you decided, you know what, I think I'm going to get married and have children. Well, if you are a female, that clock has aged out. If you're a male, sure, that timeline still might be available to you if you can find somebody who wants to be a partner and have babies when you are ready to retire. So that would be reverting to something you should have done probably 40 years ago, 30 years ago, even 20 years ago. But if you're female and you want to wait till you're 65 to have children, birth them yourself. You can always adopt, of course, if they allow a 65-year-old, if you're in good health and whatnot, and you have a good 20 years ahead of you to raise this child. I mean, you have to think about that. You'd be 80, if you raise that child till they were 21, until they're a legal adult, you'd be 86 if you live that long when they finally left the home. So some are available, but I'm not sure if you want to take them or not. But that's all timelines are all the choices that you make. And then that branches off and becomes consequences. That branches off, that branches off. So when somebody says in an alternative timeline, it just means what choice did you make? And at any point of these, you can change by what choices that you make. Let's say you are that factory worker, you're 30 years old And you're like, yeah, I want to be the manager of this factory. Well, you might have to go to school for a little bit. But perhaps you have some kind of physical disability that just simply doesn't allow that. And then that would become not available to you. Right? Like let's be honest. Let's say for perhaps, and again, I'm not judging, I'm just giving an example. Let's say perhaps you have mild autism or mild to medium autism. All right. But you're quite functional in society. You enjoy working, but you need a specific job that you do every day. You know the instructions, you know the routine, and you do the job very well. And that's your limitations. So, what are some of the timelines that wouldn't be available to you? Well, being the manager of the factory. Could you ever be the owner of the factory? Well, perhaps maybe your dad's the owner of the factory. One day bequeaths it to you. Now you're the owner, so I wouldn't rule that out. But would you ever become the manager? You probably wouldn't want to because you enjoy your routine. You enjoy each day. You wake up at the same time, you eat the same breakfast every day, you go to the same job, you check the same labels. You have your lunch at 11:55, and if that's you, that's fine. That's awesome. Good, you've got a routine. It keeps you calm, it keeps you centered. To change that might be a timeline that's not available to you, right? So that's all timelines are. And when somebody says jumping timelines or alternative timelines, all they mean is what would happen if they made choice A instead of choice B? What if Charlie Kirk went into the army instead of doing what he was doing? Would he still be alive today? Or was his destiny that he would have died that day anyways? In war, perhaps in Ukraine? So that's alternative timelines is, or what if he would have not married Erica? What if he's, wasn't married to Erica and wanted to be a pool boy cleaner or pool cleaner, start his own business being a pool cleaner? Would he still be alive today? Or would have he had an accidental drowning doing something, or gassed himself with chlorine or something? That's what we'll never know. That's what we'll never know. But alternative timelines are just where you are at a point in time and where you decide to go from there. And then also knowing that choosing this timeline here might erase some timelines that will no longer be available to you. But then that opens up this door here, which opens up that door there, which then this person over here is doing their timelines, and fate brings you together. All right, so that's they really aren't that complicated. Sometimes all you need to do to move timelines is just tweak a little bit. Let's say you're down here and you're really struggling with depression and your body's not cooperating and your health isn't that great. Well, you can quickly jump to this timeline by doing something about your health. Or let's say you're down here and, you just aren't making the money. Well, maybe you can apply for another job and move to this timeline. And then you get this job and you're making some money and you're getting some experience, and you can jump up to this timeline. You can absolutely do that. Absolutely. But once you're up at this timeline and you're really making this big money, do you think you'll ever end up back here? Not by your own choice. Perhaps the business goes bankrupt, perhaps you get a big layoff, perhaps the factory burns down, right? There's a lot of things that you have no control over when you inch up like that. When you're making your own choices on which timeline that you want to go on, your timelines are usually stronger rather than relying on a bunch of things. So if this is your own business, let's say you decide to become a writer, and then so you've written a couple of your own little books, you put them on Amazon, you're making some money. Now you've got this experience, and now you become a ghostwriter, and you're really making some good money. Well, now you're in more control of what you're doing, of your timeline. And then perhaps making that money move to a nicer house. You decide you have money to get married now and have children. So all these then start branching off for you as well. The higher you go up in your timeline, in your own personal timeline, within, let's say this was the timeline of writer, you want to become a writer, okay? And here you are just writing little blog posts, you're just barely scraping by. So you decide to write some books, and you're selling them on Amazon KDP, and you got some experience. And now you're making some money, big money ghostwriting. And now you're making huge money selling your course, How to Become a Writer. And now but this is all under the timeline of writer. You've done little steps within steps. Now, the higher you go up within your own timeline, the more options your timeline will split into, right? When you're just down here and you have your little blog post, and you're getting a little bit of money, you're just getting enough to get by, you're probably renting an apartment, perhaps you don't even have a vehicle, you're eating cheaper food. And then once you move up to this next one, perhaps you can move to a nicer apartment or buy a car. And then you move up to this one, and now you buy a house. And now you've got some money and some careers behind you, and you decide it's time to meet somebody and start a family. Once you're up here, wow, now look at the big house you got. And now, you feel really good about your career, and I don't know, perhaps you become a famous writer or some such thing. But that's all within the timeline of being a writer. So each timeline itself has timelines in it as well. See, the clock agrees with me. But so that's what a timeline is. It's just the time and the line that you take. How much time do you want to spend on that line? Do you want to go to school for 2, 3, 4, 10, 12 years? Some doctors are in school for 12 years before they start their career. So that's the time and the line. Some people can jump timelines by sheer luck. Some people can't. They have to do it step by step by step. Alternative timelines are just different choices that you make, that you veer off, and now you're on this timeline. This line was army, you hated it. This line is business. And off you go on this timeline now. Okay? So there's nothing magical or mystical about timelines. Timelines are simply direction and choices that you make. They aren't necessarily consequences. They're the road, they're the line. The amount of time you spend on the line. Okay? All right. Well, let me know what you thought of this lesson. I know you guys really kind of enjoy these ones. I enjoy teaching them. Be like my husband said, it'd be a real shame if something happened to me and I went to the grave with all this information and didn't share it. So I'm sharing it. Not that I'm going anywhere, that at least I want to. My timeline is I'm still here. All right. Take good care. See you online. Fare thee well.